Hey guys, it's Ivan from One to Pass, and I'm bringing you my Artemis deck profile. So, I got the idea to make this deck after I got bored and had no idea what to make. So, I ended up coming up with a really fun deck lineup. You'll see what I mean later on, but most of the deck is pretty standard. So, to start off, I have the starter. So, she's one of the self-correcting ride chains, so if you ride the grade 1, you can check top 7 for the grade 2 or grade 3, and if you misride the grade 2 on the grade 1, then you can look at the top 7 to superior ride the grade 2. So it's pretty good. It makes the deck a lot more consistent, which is an issue in Genesis because you soul charge a lot. So moving on, I'll start off with the grade 3s since they're the main part of the deck. So I'll start off with grade 3 Artemis. So she looks like a 10k base, but she has a skill when the grade 2 Artemis is in soul, then she gets plus 1k. So 11k base is always good. And then her primary ability is Limit Break 4, Soul Blast 3. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 3, draw 2 cards, and then put a card from your hand, put it into your soul, and it gets this unit gets plus 5k until the end of the battle. So this is actually a pretty good card, especially in Genesis, because with Genesis you have a bunch of cards that, when soul blasted, so Melissa and Shimomio, you can superior call them. And with the later units coming out in set 14, you can also soul charge more. So she's a +1, and she gives a lot of Vanguard pressure, which is pretty good considering if you've seen the other Vanguards such as Fortuna and Iwana Gahime, then you'll notice that the plus 5k is pretty expensive. I mean, Soul Blast free for plus 5. It's not that great in other decks. But this one, it's pretty good. It gives you a lot of pressure. So then I run 4 of the Break Ride. So Himiko. So she's kind of like Gancelot, but personally I think she's a lot better than Gancelot. So when you Break Ride over her, you can choose 2 rear guards and they get plus 5k. So with Gancelot it's plus 3, but with her it's plus 2. So at first that looks pretty bad, but when you look carefully, she also gives the Vanguard a skill. You can Soul Blast free, and then you can draw a card when you attack. So combined with Artemis, on Break Ride turn you get a net +1 since it costs 1 to ride, and you put 1 back into soul. But you can always just put like a grade 3 into soul, and you can just cycle out grade 3s for grade 2s or grade 1s, or even triggers, but you don't really want to draw into the triggers. That kind of sucks. So yeah, I run 4 of those and 4 of those. She's really good because she gives the plus 5 power. So I'll explain later, but I do run stand triggers in this deck. Whenever you get plus 5 on something until the end of the turn, I always run stand triggers. It makes really high columns and it's a ton of pressure. Like, you wouldn't think that a deck that's related to OTT would have a lot of stand power, but it's actually pretty good. So that's it for grade 3s. Yeah, I just like working on the grade 3s first and then moving down to the grade 2s and 1s. It works a lot better for me, honestly, because I can explain how the deck works. So for grade 2s, I run 4 grade 2 Artemis. So yeah, there's no question you have to run 4 of her because this is a ride chain deck. So when you have the grade 1 Artemis, she gets plus 1k, which is pretty good because 10k defensive base is really strong. But the main part is that when this unit attack hits the Vanguard, you can soul charge 2, and if you have the grade 1 in soul, you can soul charge another 2. So this is good for 2 reasons. One, you can get a lot of soul, and this gives a lot of attack pressure. Either they're gonna, if they're lucky and they're on actually, no, they probably can't guard this. At most, they can guard this for 1 to pass. There's no way they can guard for absolute if you put, like, a booster behind it. So, what's really also good that you can soul charge too before you activate the second part of the skill is that you can actually soul charge into grade 1 Artemis for if for whatever reason you missed the ride chain. So that's pretty good. I mean, the main thing about Genesis is you gotta get cards in soul. Like, if you don't get cards in soul, you basically lose the game. Right there. So that's 4 right there. And then I run 4 Shamomios. 4 Shamomios. So her skill is when she's soul blasted, you can counterblast 1, and then you can superior call her. So this is good for 2 reasons. One, it's a free plus. I mean, you get a free field plus on. But since all the soul blasting abilities in this deck work on Vanguard attack, what you can actually do is you can get multiple attacks off by soul blasting her and superior calling. Of course, you do minus yourself when you're doing this, but it can be worth it if your opponent has no cards doesn't have enough cards to guard your break ride turn. So it's pretty strong. It's free pluses. I mean, who doesn't love free pluses? And then I run free Saohimes. Oh, people hate this card. When she hits, you can counterblast 1 and soul charge free. It's really good because you don't use counterblast at all in this deck, except for Shamomil and Melissa, who has the same skill as her. This is your main rearguard pressure hitter. I mean, if you hit, then eventually you'll get a +1 off of her. So usually people will try to kill her or they'll guard her for sure. I mean, it really depends on how many cards you have in soul. Like, if you really want to protect her, then go for it. Like, it's definitely worth it. But if you have enough soul, you don't really need her on the field. So she's really good pressure though. I like pressure cards if you've noticed what kind of decks I play. And then that's it for the grade 2s. So for grade 1s, I run 4 grade 1 Artemis. So I already mentioned this. She's the self-correcting ride chain. So if a grade 2 not named Twilight Hunter Artemis, so the grade 2 Artemis rides, then you can search for your top 7 cards of your deck for the grade 2 Artemis and superior ride it. So it's pretty good. I mean, if you rode into her, like, riding into her is really important. I mean, I wouldn't risk getting grade stuck over it, but it's really good because you get the 8k base when the 0 starters in soul. So for whatever reason you missed the first 7 cards, no problem. You get another 7. I mean, if you somehow miss that twice, then you're pretty bad. I mean, your deck probably hates you. So that's 4 of her. And then I also run 4 Witcher Frogs Melissa. So she has the same skill as Shamomiel. So when she's soul blasted, you can counterblast 1, and then you can superior call it to rearguard. Usually, if I'm missing out on boosters, I'll use this. Honestly, I don't usually find that too much of a problem, but sometimes I don't really want to commit to the field super hard, so I just wait until I get my grade 3 and I get my soul blast running. And then of course I run 4 perfect guards. It kind of sucks sometimes because you do soul charge her sometimes, but it's not that bad, I guess. You really need the perfect guards. I mean, you just save so much hand with them. And I also really like her artwork. She's my second favorite artwork for perfect guards. First one is definitely Arya, and third one is what's her name? Third one's Ellie. Those are the Bermuda ones. If you've seen the duo cards. Maybe I'll show you guys a deck profile of that later. And then I run 2 Existence Angels. She's kind of like a backup, really, if you somehow didn't get enough soul. When an attack hits that this unit boosted, you can soul charge 1. It's really important to get free cards in this soul for you to soul blast, because the way that Genesis works, you soul blast in chunks. So sometimes if you're just missing 1, you can get that important 1. You draw those cards and get those pluses. Yeah, so that's it for grade 1s. Okay, and here's the fun part of my deck. This is the part where I got really bored and I decided to just do whatever with the trigger lineup. You'll see it a bit. So I run 4 8 crit. because there's only 8 crit. I would run more if you could, but sadly it's not out in English yet. So she's pretty good. I mean, you can choose when you're Genesis, and when you put this from Rearguard into Soul, and then it gets plus 3k until the end of turn. So you can use her to build up Soul and then get a few pluses, and you can also try to hit magic numbers with her. So it's really good if you don't have that Soul. I wouldn't use this all the time because you need those 10k shields too. Then I run our 4 stand. Stand triggers are really good in this deck because you get the plus 5ks on Himiko, and then you just have huge pressure. And also, whenever you have a card like Saohime, where is it? This card right here. Like, whenever you have on-hits, it's really good to run those on-hit cards. I mean, stand triggers with on-hit cards. It just provides so much pressure. It's really amazing. And I just like stand triggers. Oh, I lied. I actually run 7 stand. So you're wondering, why the heck did you run 7 stand? Because now I have 15 triggers. Oh, I run 1 heal too. So I got really bored, and the way I play Genesis, I play it as a really high pressure deck early, and then late game I just draw and plus my field to make up for it. So heals, the way you play around with just having 1 heal in your deck is you gotta be really good at controlling your damage. If you're not good at doing that, then I would just ditch these free stands and just run 4 heals. But I got really bored, and I decided to run 7 stand because I like stand triggers. I blame it ever since I started playing Genesis, because when I started playing Genesis, I didn't realize that you deck out pretty easily if you run draws. Don't run draws in Genesis, it's really bad. The stand triggers just provide a lot of on-hit pressure, so that's why I really like running them. I just ran the 1 heal so that if for some reason I have to heal sack, I still have hope, and yeah, unless you get it early, then you're like, oh man, I lost. So, a few major things about this deck that I think that are important to know. When you break ride Artemis on Himiko, you gotta activate Artemis' skill first, because you can. What's really good about this deck is, like, you can say draw into Soul Blast, draw into these 2. If for some reason you didn't have the grade 2 in Soul, you can shove her in Soul, and then you're good. And you have 11k. But the more important thing is, if you get, say, like, a Shimomi, you can shove her into Skull, and you still have Himiko's Break Right skill to activate, so you can get that card if you didn't Soul Charge her earlier. So that's one of the major things with this deck. There's not much left to say. You just need to make sure you pressure your opponent a lot early, and then late game you just start plussing your field. So how I did with this deck, I played today at my local tourney, and I placed I won 3 rounds and I lost 1. Definitely the highlight of playing this deck was when my opponent counted that I had 11 triggers, and I had 4 cards left in my deck. So he was in a position where he was trying to guard for one to pass, but clearly I had 1 trigger in hand, so I had 4 triggers left in deck. So yeah, basically there was no way he could win. It was pretty funny. We had a good laugh. I always love playing with him. It's pretty fun to play with. So yeah, that's about it for this deck. I don't think I'm ever going to play it again, because Minerva's coming out soon, and I always have a tendency not to play a deck more than once in a row. So yeah, that's about it for this deck. Definitely recommend trying it. It's a pretty cheap deck. The only expensive cards are... Artemis is dirt cheap. She's like a couple bucks. Himiko, she's around 10-ish, I guess, because she's still a good break ride. I mean, the only problem would be probably Kushinada, because Minerva hype is OP, and I think she's going for 12 to 15, so you can make this deck for pretty cheap. It takes a bit of work to get used to, because you gotta get used to playing. You gotta get used to the play style. And I got Minerva sleeves. I'm so ready for Minerva. I'll definitely have a deck profile out. I already wrote a guide about it. I'll post that link below. So yeah, thanks for watching my videos. See you guys later.